in this business, every player has a price, Rob, and potentially you could lose any of the players. I wouldn't be totally devastated, if I'm honest, that any player at Rangers moved on if it was the right business opportunity for the football club. I understand what Barry's saying about Aribo in terms of he is a great talent. I still think there's a lot better to come from Aribo. Technically very good. Physically, he's a great athlete. He very rarely loses the ball in tight areas. I still think he can execute better. But for me, if you are to lose a player, as long as the club are then in a position, which I believe they would be, to reinvest to bring somebody better in, I don't have an issue with any player leaving if it's the right thing for the club.
We were saying on the show last night as well that there was that very impressive succession plan when Steven Gerrard went. It clicked into gear very quickly. It was obviously Giovanni van Bronckhorst was the name on everyone's lips immediately, and it happened very quickly, didn't it? And you would imagine, Craigs, that player-wise there would be that same succession plan for any position, be it Connor Goldson or be it Joe Aribo or be it anyone else who disappeared in January.
Well, there has to be, because Rangers have made it known for a while that they may have to sell one or two. That is their business model. So when you may have to sell one or two of your best players, you have to have a plan B of who you're going to bring in or who's going to fill that gap or fill that void. It either has to come from below, from the youth players or the academy coming up, or you maybe have to go out and invest a little bit more. You have to look at free transfers, and that's what the likes of Ross Wilson has done. He's brought in Scott Wright. I still think there's an awful lot more to come from Scott Wright. He's brought in Jack Simpson, who really hasn't fitted in at the minute. No. Unfortunately. But Joe Aribo was probably in before Ross Wilson came in, but he came in a free transfer. So there's ways of doing it, and there's money you have to spend. But you'd like to think that Rangers have their finger on the pulse, as will Celtic. These clubs will understand if clubs come calling and offer big money, the club probably have to accept, and they have to move on. But I think they want to try and hold them, or try and get as best value as they possibly can. I think that's the key to it.
Scott, do you see Celtic as much more of a threat at the moment in the title race than you would have done right at the start of the season?
Yeah, I think everyone does. I think you look at players like, I don't like praising them, but you look at players like your Kyogos, Jota. I think that Abada's, he's hot and cold, but when he's on it, I think he's a good player. Callum McGregor, obviously, I think he's stepped up a different level. I still think their defence is questionable. I think that Starfelt he's came on to the game recently, but I still think he's a bit lightweight for Scottish football. I think Carter Vickers is a good player, but he'll be away in the summer. I don't think they'll get him permanently. So yeah, I think from Celtic, I think it's definitely more of a challenge than I thought we were going to get. But I do think, I was just on touching on what they were talking about, the transfer window as well. I think the only player that's been linked to a move that I would probably let go, it's probably a shock to you, but it's probably Morelos. Because I think Roof, if you take Morelos out and put Roof in, I don't think there's much of a difference. I think under Gerrard there would have been, because he drops deep, likes to play that kind of thing that Gerrard liked him to do. I think Gio looks for a penalty box striker, and I think Roof's a much better finisher than Morelos. And I think that's what Gio's looking for in a striker more than anything. And I think we take good money for Morelos as well.
Yeah, well, again, like I said, I wouldn't have any concerns if any player come January, a transfer come in and it was of a value that Rangers felt they couldn't refuse, Rob, because I think that all the players are replaceable. I really do. The speculation around about Patterson, look, great player, great potential, still not played a huge number of games. There may come a time, and it might even be this window, where he's like that, knocking on the door saying, I need to be playing, I'm not happy. As long as Rangers then go and get the right money for the kid, no issue with it at all. Morelos, if Morelos was to kick on and do his business elsewhere, no surprise. I believe that there's players there. As Scott, you've touched on Roof. I also believe Sakala is going to grow and every game, every goal, more and more confidence from him. So I'm not overly concerned about the transfer window, any potential players departing, because I'm confident that Rangers will be in a position. Craig's touched on it. Ross Wilson, I think, has done a fantastic job. He will have 3-4 potential players in every possible position and be ready to strike if that moment is needed.